Welcome in, everybody, to another season of UFL Weekly. I am Kyle Krajewski, joined by Mr. Fantastic, Mr. Beautiful, Zach Cole. Starting off a new year, new season, 2025. The UFL is essentially, it is back. We're getting kickoff as of this recording on Thursday morning, kickoff tomorrow night. We've got another lovely season coming up ahead of us. But without further ado, Zach, how's it going, man?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited to be back. We have been fighting through some technical difficulties, some scheduling difficulties the last couple weeks here, but we finally figured it out, and here we are with a couple days to spare, ready to go into the season. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what teams improve this year, and maybe hopefully we can get a little more parity across the league this year, because last year was a little bit of a one-sided affair.
Yeah, last year, and if I'm now a lot louder or clearer, speaking of technical difficulties, I found my mic. I it was just sitting off to the side here and just forgot to slide it right in front of me. So
You
hello.
sound much crisper now. You sound great.
I'm happy to be here. But yeah, last year, we kind of saw the writing on the walls as to who the champion would be. And I guess without further ado, again, we've got our reigning champ, 3-time champion, Birmingham Stallions coming into the year again. 2-time in the USFL, reigning UFL champion, and just with a complete wash of the San Antonio Brahmas in the UFL championship last year. I don't see a world, Zach. We'll talk about this probably halfway through the season when we actually see some gameplay this year. I don't see a world where they don't quad Pete. But we'll touch on that further into the season. Let's talk week one. Let's talk what's going into the year. But Birmingham Stallions, another round of applause again for being our year one UFL champion and 3-time spring football champion.
Yeah, I think that just for our sake, we're maybe a little nearsighted with just talking about the UFL from last year. But if you look all the way back to the USFL, we're talking, what was that, 2021, 2022? We're back
23.
Yeah, we're back a couple seasons now that these guys have just been dominant. They clearly have a formula that works for them, and I don't really see a whole lot of reasons why we would doubt that formula coming into another new season. But again, like you said, we'll figure that out as we get further down the road this season. We're trying to have that blank slate mentality going into this year, and everyone's 0-0 for a reason, right?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to do when you see Bob Stoops returning as head coach for Birmingham Stallions.
Yeah.
But let's kick us off here with some things to know kind of heading into the season, specifically dates. We've got kickoff March 28th, which is, we're recording this the 27th. Kickoff is tomorrow. And if you're interested, that seems like a very weird date because it's a Friday. We get a Friday night game every week this season, Friday night football at 8 p.m. Every Friday, week 1 through week 10. And then basically every weekend for the next 10 weeks is Friday night. We got a Saturday game every week, except weeks 8 and 9, we get 2 Saturday games, and then consistently 2 games on Sunday. So it's no longer football Sunday, it's football weekend here in spring football.
I think that's one of the beauties of the league too, is that, anywhere from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you can get games. I know every year we look forward to those Easter weekend games. It's just, I love the way that they do that to kind of spread out the league rather than just cramming it all in one day.
Yeah, and specifically this weekend, what is it? Opening day today, and then right into kickoff weekend for UFL.
And Sweet 16 and Elite 8.
Yeah, we're seeing a spring football equinox.
Mm-hmm.
I know we talk. I think it's popular that there's a sports equinox taking place like every fall, with every major sports team and league having a game on the same day, and we're kind of seeing that in a different beauty in the spring now, and it's lovely. Conference championships both taking place Sunday, June 8th. So we've got a few months away from that. And then the UFL championship a week later, Saturday, June 14th. What's new this year, Zach? We've got, this is all taking place. These two kind of big news taking place in the past week. The DC Defenders and Memphis Showboats are entering the season with interim head coaches taking the reins here. I had a note up until I think it was Monday that the Memphis Showboats were the only team with a new head coach this season. Um, but then Ken Wisenhunt joined the team in this past offseason, and then a week prior to the season beginning, stepped away. Can't fault him. Man makes his own decisions.
Mhm.
But for the Memphis Showboats, offensive line coach Jim Turner steps in as the interim. And then for DC, Reggie Barlow, long DC Defender head coach,
Mhm.
steps away to kind of take the reins in Tennessee State University to become the head coach there. And QB coach Shannon Harris stepping in as the interim head coach there. And I think the thought there in DC is that next season we'll see a completely new coaching staff because I think Barlow's taken his whole group with him to Tennessee State.
Yeah, just to kind of go back to the Ken Wisenhunt thing, I think that obviously we hope for the best with him stepping away, but I almost feel like he's an NFL guy. He's been
Yeah.
around the NFL forever. He was with the Cardinals for a while, the head coach of the Cardinals. I feel like he might end up as a coordinator somewhere or as a position coach or something in the NFL. Again, that's just pure speculation, though, of why he might be stepping away after having agreed and then stepped away in the same offseason. It's kind of odd. Um, but as far as Reggie Barlow goes, that's a big loss for DC, I think, and it's a good step for him to be able to go and take over his own college program now. I don't necessarily know whether that's lateral from spring football to college, but still, it's nice that he'll be able to go and get to do his own thing with his own organization, pretty much.
Yeah, I think looking at it laterally or kind of the move from spring football to college, I feel like is very up to the person as to
Hmm.
how they look at it. Maybe it was his
Hmm.
goal entirely to be college football head coach. But it's hard to look at that and say and call the UFL a league of opportunity and not think of that in the sense of the uh, head coaches as well. I mean, we've
Yeah.
even seen. I think I should have had this in my notes. So please, listeners, watchers, fact check me. But I think the special teams coach for the Battlehawks got hired for to the Lions. Um, there was a coordinator for the Battlehawks that left to take a full time role in Detroit for the Lions. So, league of opportunity for players and everybody involved.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of the Lions and opportunities, Jake Bates is like the poster child for the League of Opportunities. He went and had a great season with the Lions this year after being the stud of the UFL last year. So it's catching on. I think that being back for year two, technically year three if we count the XFL year, but year two is a really good sign for the longevity of this league and for the legitimacy of this league moving forward. And hopefully, we get to see some more people take that step from the UFL to being, really what's the word I'm looking for? Very frequently mentioned names in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm hoping we. My dream for this league is to start seeing these kind of fringe lineup guys in the NFL really start to use this league as truly an opportunity to either
Hmm.
showcase what they've got or just to grow themselves. The name I keep seeing floated around, um, unfortunately, is Trey Lance, who I think is presently unsigned. But
Hmm.
what better kind of type of person to be like, okay, let me get some starting reps under my belt again in a professional football league.
Yeah.
Um, and he's a guy I'd like to see kind of make that jump, but who knows? It's all up to these guys. But I'm really hoping the UFL starts to become mentioned and becoming an opportunity for an option specifically for these guys who are just looking for their shot.
Yeah, and again, just talking about the legitimacy of the league, I think the more that we see the league around and sticking around and
Yeah,
more guys making the jump, the more that these guys like Trey Lance are going to be willing to step down
yeah,
and not necessarily see it as a backwards move, but more of like a reestablishing myself, a proving move. You know.
yeah. I'd like to see it viewed as almost like a, not to belittle the UFL when I say this, but like see it as off-season workouts.
Hmm.
And I know that feels like I am belittling the league, but I feel like it should almost start to become mentioned like that. Like, get your reps in a professional league against real players,
Right.
instead of just going for reps.
Well, even the timing of the league lines up well with the NFL season,
Yes,
where these guys he could play a full 10 game
Pur-
season, you know,
purposefully.
a
Yeah,
12 game season, and still be ready to go for mandatory mini camps. Like it
yeah,
lines up well. I know that's a lot of wear and tear to be playing basically 12 straight months of football, but these guys who are looking to make the jump and get back into the league aren't really in a position where they can be picky. So you kind of just gotta do what you gotta do until you reprove yourself for the NFL level.
right. But and we see it. I mean, we've seen it for a few guys. I'll mention Adrian Martinez,
Hmm.
quarterback for the Stallions last year. No, not in the league this year because he kind of cemented himself into a backup role, or was able to sign a contract with the Jets, to be able to kind of stick around there.
Hmm.
So it may not be just to find your starting role in the NFL. Maybe it's to find your maybe your permanent or at least a stepping stone backup role in the NFL. Get that contract.
Definitely, definitely.
All right. So that was our brief mini recap of what to know and things to remember and what's new going into the season. There's plenty of new things. For example, I'll also mention there's been a rule change. There's two new rule changes. They adjusted the kickoff. We're going back to, we'll call it XFL style kickoff to kind of align with the NFL going to
Hmm.
that style of kickoff. So the UFL this season will have a matching kickoff again this year, where last year they were the I guess we'll call it the historic or the old NFL kickoff style. And we're also, there's a change to challenges. Um, Coaches can challenge just about anything. Um, so challenges and kickoffs are the big kind of rule changes, but aside from that, that's what we've got.
Yeah, definitely,
Let's
definitely.
move in to our week one preview. This is going to be a little bit brief for each game, as this is just, it's week one, so we're going to
Hmm.
treat it like week one. We're just going to be looking at the odds. Zach and I will make our picks, with the over unders and the spreads. Um, and then we'll just kind of list some players to watch on both sides of the ball, on both teams as well. Kind of saying, going into each game, saying, all right, who's this guy? Or so you could throw on the San Antonio Brahmas and Arlington Renegades and just immediately say, all right, who am I looking out for? Not necessarily saying these are the best guys, but just saying, like, this is who they are. This is the team. So we'll kick us off Friday night football, Friday night lights. March 28th, 8 p.m., we have the St. Louis Battlehawks facing off against the Houston Roughnecks. Uh, St. Louis is favored with -6. Over under set at 37 and a half. Um, that is the second lowest, almost tied for the lowest over under for the week. However, we see the Battlehawks come into the historically the past few years we saw the Battlehawks throw out AJ McCarron, who was consistently one of the best quarterbacks in
Hmm.
spring football. Uh, but AJ McCarron is no longer on the team this year. We're seeing a co-quarterback system here, with Max Duggan and Manny Wilkins. Uh, Max Duggan is making his spring football uh, debut, and Manny Wilkins was the backup for AJ McCarron last year on the Battlehawks, so he knows this system.
I think that the thing to know about this game, Kyle, outside of just some of the players that are relevant to this game, if we remember
Please.
back to last year, the Roughnecks were pretty woeful. They were
Yeah.
1-9 last year, and it just was not a great season for them. We saw them come from the XFL as being one of the better couple teams. If I remember right, I think they went something along the lines of 8-2 or 7-3 in that 2023 rendition of the XFL. But moving into this year, they're just looking to kind of bounce back and redeem themselves from a really poor season. They lost Wade Phillips when we moved over to the UFL. He went to the Brahmas, so it was just a year of transition. So now they're hoping, I guess, to build off of what was their first season. They had a couple highlights with Roby, who led the UFL and interceptor, was tied for the lead interceptions, and Justin Hall, who was a pretty good receiver for them. So I think they're just trying to build off of. It's the old mentality. It can only go up from here. Like they just need to find some wins and find a couple some ways to put a couple more wins on the board for themselves this year.
Yeah,
So
and let's not forget the Roughnecks were coming into the UFL were the Houston Gamblers
yes,
from the
correct,
USFL.
correct, yes,
So while there was a Roughnecks in the XFL, the team that entered the UFL last year was the Houston Gamblers, just taking the
yes,
name as the Roughnecks. So that's why we
correct.
saw some shakeup there
Hmm.
in roster and coaching. Another thing to note: the Battlehawks have what I would call the best wide receiver room in the league. I think Hakeem Butler has been the past 2 seasons the best wide receiver in spring football. And then they add in Jacor Pearson, who last
Hmm.
year had an injury kind of keeping him from being the stud that we previously knew him as. And then NFL guy Denzel Mims makes his way into spring football here on the Battlehawks.
I think that this, you mentioned Duggan and Wilkins. I think this is one of the best quarterback rooms in the league. Two super experienced guys. Manny Wilkins has tons of UFL experience. But I really liked what I saw from Duggan in college, and I just don't ever think he really got a shot behind not only Justin Herbert but Easton Stick when he was with the Chargers. So um, I think the Battlehawks probably win this one pretty safely. That's just kind of my opinion on this right off the rip. Do we want to get into our picks now, or do we want to save it
Let's
till the
do
end?
it. Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do them one at a time, I think. So
Yeah.
I'll take the Battlehawks -6 here. Um, and you know what? It's the first week. I'm going to say everyone's a little rusty, so I'm going to take the under 37.5. I think the Battlehawks might put up a couple scores, but I think the Roughnecks might have a hard time finding the end zone. So I'm going to take -6, and I'll take under 37.5.
All right. I Oh, I think I'm with you on the spread there. I think we're going to see a Battlehawks pretty solid win there on -6. However, I'm going to take the over. I think the Battlehawks will score, and I think we'll see some good long balls thrown Justin Hall's way. Um, Anthony Brown for the Roughnecks was actually just yesterday named starting quarterback. I think all offseason it was considered to be Nolan Henderson. However, I think this past week, Anthony Brown kind of like really stood out in game prep. So I think we'll see some ball movement here on the Roughneck side, bringing us to the over on this 37.5 line.
I hope so. I would like nothing more. I am also I'm scrolling through some of the other over unders. It seems like 37 is kind of like the number this week.
Yeah,
I
it
see
seems like yeah.
a 37, a 38, 37.5, and then the Stallions is obviously a little bit higher because of their offense. But we'll get to that in a couple minutes here. So just I guess keep in mind as you're listening to our recaps and stuff, 37 is kind of the number of the week this week.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the number we kind of see moving
Hmm.
forward, unless we
Hmm.
see an offensive boom here in the UFL.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on to game 2 of the weekend, our lone Saturday game, the San Antonio Brahmas versus the Arlington Renegades. San Antonio is favored at -3 over under set, as Zach said, my at 37. Uh, Players to watch. I'm just gonna straight up say the Brahmas defense. This
Mhm.
defense last year was they were this team and kind of what led them to make their way to the championship. Except their championship performance was probably their worst of the season, and then the offense just couldn't score. Uh, so I'll just highlight the Brahmas defense, led by linebackers Devontae Beckett, Jordan Williams, safety Jordan Mosley, and their newly acquired cornerback, prior NFL second round pick Greedy Williams, had some time with the Browns. Uh, but there's this squad uh, is the heart and soul of this Brahmas team. Meanwhile, the Renegades have Spring King, um, as we call him, quarterback Luis Perez was the 2024 UFL passing leader. He is just he slings it, specifically to tight end Sal Canella,
Mhm.
who was the tight end or was the touchdown receiving leader last year for the UFL. Um, and I'm looking forward to seeing this Renegades offense try to not be tamed by this Brahmas defense.
It's it's funny, we say Spring King. I almost feel like if the Raiders, like, called Luis Perez and they're like, "Hey, we want you to be our quarterback," he'd be like, "No, I'm good, thanks."
Move your games to the spring. I'm in.
Yeah, I'm right where I belong. Um, yeah, it's no shock that the Brahmas defense is as good as it is. I alluded before to Wade Phillips being their head
Yeah,
coach, legendary defensive coach with the Cowboys and the NFL, and just that's his thing. So it's no shock that this defense clicks as well as it does. And you mentioned Greedy Williams. That's a big name. We saw
yeah.
his name's escaping me at the moment, but we've seen some other cornerbacks drop down to the UFL level. Um, Last year, he was with the Defenders. I'll look
I'll
it up.
find it. Keep going. I
Okay.
got it. You go.
But I think that just getting a name like that is big, and again, it can be a confidence boost for these guys when they hop back into just a league where they can find some success again and find some confidence. So I think that we saw the Brahmas as one of the better teams last year, and the Renegades only had 3 wins on the season. I know I'm going off last year, but I feel like that's kind of what we have to build off of, just knowing what we know about these teams. So I think I'm going to stick with the Brahmas -3 in this one. I think their defense will probably be stifling again this season. So I think that that's a pretty safe bet. And just strictly off the defense again, I'm going to stick with the under as well. So again, I will take the Brahmas -3, and I will take the under on the game.
Was it DJ Swearinger?
Swearinger was one of them. It's still not who I'm thinking of. You go ahead and make your picks, and I'll
All
I'll,
right,
I'll
all
try to
right.
figure out who I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
you've got your guy. Um, let's see. What is it? I think I'm gonna go. All right. The Brahmas have Kellen Mond starting at quarterback. And then they've got John Trey Kirkland, who I absolutely love. Is probably my favorite wide receiver in spring football history.
John Trey's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, I'm gonna take San Antonio -3. Once again, joining you there on the spread. I am, however, you know what? Give me the over.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, oh, that Brahmas defense is gonna really be a pain for the Renegades.
See, it's tricky. It's hard.
Nah, give me the over. I'm gonna wind up taking the
All
over
right.
in most of these games, and maybe that's the optimist in me hoping to see some points.
37 is pretty low too. Definitely an achievable number for these teams.
Yeah, but what were their? Oh, now I gotta find it because I feel like these were the teams that had like 9-3 games last year.
I remember those. Kyle, DeAndre Baker was the name I was trying to come up with.
That's yeah, I thought so.
DeAndre Baker.
All right, game 3 this weekend. We have the Michigan Panthers versus the Memphis Showboats. Uh, Sorry, I'm just looking up on my side here. The Brahmas and Renegades 15-25, 15
I
to
see that
20.
one.
Yeah,
All right, so we're gonna be somewhere in between 35 and 40 points. It's at right where the spread is.
give me the over.
Or I'm
All
sorry,
right.
right where the over under is. Sorry.
My mind was stuck on Brahma's Renegades. Uh, Third game of the week, our Sunday kickoff at noon Eastern time. So it's a lovely morning game for you West Coasters.
Hmm.
What's better than a morning spring football game? Uh, Michigan is favored here at -5.5. I will say this started as Michigan -3.5 prior to Wise and Hunt stepping away. And the over under set at 38. Players to watch here specifically on the Panthers side. Offensive staples returning from last year. Running back Matthew Coburn and wide receiver Marcus Sims. And then we see on the defensive side, Breland Speaks, the end, was the sack leader for the league last season, and safety Kai Nakua, which, if you recognize the last name, is Puka Nakua's brother, was the tied for the interception leader for the UFL last season.
Yeah, it's the Panthers were one of the better teams in the league last year, and I think that they were one that you and I were kind of always just hoping could make that jump to the next level
We
and
really were.
really compete with the Stallions, but that it just never really worked out. The Showboats, on the other hand, were again much like the Roughnecks, one of the worst teams in the league, and just couldn't figure it out last year. They ended up at 2-8 last season. They did bring in a new defensive coordinator from the USFL, who his name is Jaron Horton, and he came from the Pittsburgh Maulers, and he brought some of his dudes with him from that team. Just a couple names: Boogie Roberts, who's a D tackle, corner Mark Gilbert, and D back Eli Walker. So just a couple new faces there, and who knows? Maybe that's what they need to just spice up the team this year and make some positive changes to get some more wins on the board for them. So I think what we know to be true is that the Panthers are probably still going to be pretty talented and a pretty solid team, and the Showboats have a lot to prove.
Yeah, and if you're returning from last year, wondering where the big name on the Showboats offense is, Dawood Davis was kind of a standout wide receiver
Hmm.
for them. He is presently on their reserve list, so while this is a week one preview, don't expect him to see him out on the field. He got hurt this past season, actually with the Panthers on
Hmm.
the in the NFL side. Um, so he's kind of dealing with that, but we should see him later this season, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Um, but yeah, we see EJ Perry coming out for starting quarterback for the Showboats. And then starting for the Panthers, we should expect to see Bryce Perkins out there. Um, it's a I think we're going to see a stronger Showboats team. You mentioned Jaron Horton, um, assistant coach of the year for the USFL 2 years ago. He was kind of a guy that I was shocked didn't make the jump to the UFL when they transferred over. And actually also shocked he didn't get a head coaching nod in the interim. However, I'm not here to judge personnel movement here. But I think that Showboat's defense should look a lot better than I think it was a league worst points allowed last year. So hopefully it's better this year for them.
Yeah, only up.
Only up.
All right,
All
go
right,
ahead. You
Zach.
want to?
What are you?
I'll make
Yeah,
my picks first here.
you got it.
All right. So just I need to see something out of. I feel like I'm just going chalk here today, but I need to see something out of the Showboats before I'm ready to really put a lot of faith in them and picking them against the spread. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Panthers -5.5. That's the second. No, it's actually the third biggest spread of the week, but still, I feel like that's a pretty convincing
It's a
margin.
strong spread. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they favor him by about a touchdown, and that sounds about right to me. So I'll take the Panthers -5.5, and I will go over on this game. I think the Panthers will probably put up a decent amount of points, and I think the Showboats might score some points here too. Probably late. I think more so when the game is out of hand. and to kind of pull it close to that over. So minus 5.5 for me and the over.
Love it. I am joining you on the -5.5. I think, not to fully put blame on the shakeup, I think I would have liked this at 3.5 prior to Weisenhunt stepping away. But I think that alone kind of helps me really feel more
Hmm.
comfortable with the -5.5. So I'm taking that over under. My This will probably be my only under of the week. Um, I think these are two offenses who may not be the best in the league. So I mean, I'm hopeful I'm wrong. However, I think these are two relatively stronger defenses compared to last year, at least. And I think 38 being the second highest on the slate by like half a point. Uh, I feel much more comfortable with the under.
All right, go boats.
Go Boats. Wait a minute. No, go Panthers.
Well, you're looking for the points, so go boats.
I'm looking for the less points. So yeah,
I'm just looking at last year, Kyle. I'm scrolling through their results. That there were some pretty high scoring games for the Showboats last year. I see 36-21, 24-18, 47-23, 39-21. I think realistically, where this line is set, there was only two games, the first game and the last game, both against the Roughnecks, coincidentally, that would have been under this 38 line.
interesting. And maybe I'm putting a lot of stock into the refresh defense, but
This might make you feel better. It was 24-18 when they played the Panthers. So um,
okay, I feel better.
yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. All right, final game of the weekend, Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern. We have the Birmingham Stallions versus the DC Defenders. Which, Zach, I don't know about you, but I would call this the game of the week.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe. I think going into week one, it might have just been any game featuring the Stallions would be
Hmm.
game of the week. However, I think this should be a relatively fun matchup to see to kind of put a bow on kickoff weekend. The Stallions are favored by a full touchdown, -7. However, let's not forget that there are no extra points in the UFL. It's the 1, 2, or three
One, two, or three
point
try. Yep.
extra points. However, let's leave it at calling this a touchdown difference. Birmingham's favored by 7. Over under longest of the weekend at 41. So the highest scoring game on paper for these two. The Stallions have probably the biggest shakeup in quarterback, because they are losing Alex Martinez, or Adrian Martinez, not Alex,
Adrian. Hmm.
Adrian Martinez, who was both the one of the best passers as well as the best rushers. He led the league in rushing yards last year as a quarterback who didn't even start every game because they played flip flop for a few games there at starting
Hmm.
quarterback. So they lost him. However, they bring back probably the best replacement they could have for him. And it's almost like they're replacing him with the replacement. Um, Alex McGough, McGough returns to the Stallions after winning the 2023 USFL MVP with Birmingham. So 2 years ago, he was the Stallion starting quarterback, knows this system, and returns after, I guess, stepping away from spring football for a year. So they just go from MVP caliber quarterback to MVP caliber. I mean, to MVP quarterback. Let's not forget tight end Jay Sternberger. He's a spring football staple at this point. Was the team's leading receiver last year. And then wide receiver Deion Kane returns for the third season with the squad as well.
I do think, Kyle. I just want to add in. I think Matt Corral is also still there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think Corral is still floating around here. I have the roster right here.
Yeah, he is on
Birmingham.
the
Yeah,
roster.
Matt Corral was. Yeah, he's still around.
I see here it says on December 26th he re-signed with the Stallions. So,
Yeah, Matt
um,
Corral is here and could probably start on plenty other teams, but
yeah,
Bob Stoops is hoarding him.
yeah, he if we remember, he played a huge role in some of their success last year. So he and Martinez were a really good 1-2 tandem, and maybe we'll see that with he and McGuff this year. I don't know. I don't know what Stoops plans to do with the two of them. There was a real difference in the game of Martinez and Corral, so that kind of led for a like a split role for both of them. I don't know. I don't know what the game plan will be, but it'll be interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm excited though because the Stallions team will be uh, I they're just gonna trample some of these squads again. On the defender side, we get offensive returnees. Jordan Teamu, who's been the kind of quarterback for this squad for a few years now, 2023 XFL Offensive Player of the Year, returning, and running back Abram Smith. Didn't play last year after getting injured, like right before the season started. Was the 2023 XFL leading rusher by like a long shot.
Hmm.
He was arguably the best non QB player in the XFL. And I was so excited to see him play last year and didn't get to, but he returns this year. Um, for Yeah, and then on the defensive side, D tackle Malik Fisher returns to be the front force on this D line for this defense of the defenders. The defenders defense.
Yeah,
Every time it throws me off.
yeah, it's if we could almost pretend like 2024 never happened for the Defenders, I think that would be great, and I think that this would be the matchup of the season. Obviously,
Yeah,
things weren't perfect last year for them. There were some things that could have gone better, like Abram Smith could have stayed healthy throughout training camp and could have come in here fresh. Teamu kind of struggled last year. There was just it was a weird year for them. I also see as I'm looking through the roster as you were talking here, I do see that they have a couple other NFL names on their team.
yeah.
In the running back room, they have Trenton Cannon, who's seen some NFL time. Lim Bowden, who was with the Dolphins for a little while, and I believe the Raiders, if I remember right. And Deion Jackson, who most recently was Jonathan Taylor's backup in Indianapolis. So some other decent names there that they can fall back on. I think this is going to be a way better game than it's kind of lining up to be, or it looks on paper, I should say, coming into the season. And I'm going to take the Defenders +7 in this game. I think that they're going to keep it close, and that they're going to do a nice job of competing. The Stallions still could be rusty too, coming into the season, first game, everything's up in the air. So I'm going to take the defenders +7, and I will go. I'll go over 41 in this one. Also, I think this. No, no, I lied. I'm going under 41 in this one. I think it's going to be a tightly contested game, and I like it ending up somewhere 21-17, 22-17, 22-18, something like that. Somewhere right in there, close to the 20 range for each team.
I like that. Hmm. I'm hmm. This game's gonna stump me all week. It's been stumping me. You know what? Give me Birmingham -7.
Okay. That was a pretty
I'm gonna
safe bet
take.
last year, taking
Yeah,
Birmingham against the spread.
seven is a spread though
Mhm,
in this league, but
especially
I
week 1.
I think the lack of turnover on the Birmingham side and probably upgrading somehow at quarterback.
Mhm,
I say somehow because Adrian was a stud and then McGuff is also a stud. So maybe it's
mhm.
allowed. We'll see. Um, I think that -7 feels strong to me. I'm going to take the over. I think, oh, the, mm, give me the over. I want the fun. Um,
Alright.
The only reason I was contemplating the under is because I think this Stallions defense is really solid as well. My worry for the defenders that we saw last year is that they kind of relied a lot on the long ball to
Mhm.
score.
Mhm.
But I think that was a product of Abram Smith not being there to kind of help them uh, run and gun in as much as they wanted to. So I think, give me the points, give me the over. I just maybe that's me wanting to see the points, but
A guy can hope.
a guy can hope. So yeah, Birmingham -7 in the over. All right, Zach. Feels like I just started talking to you.
I know.
Uh,
It's crazy. When we start talking UFL, time flies.
it really does. I love it. I'm happy to be back. I do want to brag in your face a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Just for those who are curious, our picks last year. Again, I would like to say this is not betting advice. This is not like me us saying
No.
slap these picks. We probably should
Two
have
guys
started with
having
that.
fun. That's it.
Just two guys making pick'ems. Um, I finished the season last year with a 59% pick rate, positive pick rate.
Round
Zach,
that up. Give yourself the extra point three
oh,
there.
I'll take the 60. You finished with 46.8%, 47%.
Round that one up too. Yeah, there we go. That's better.
So for those who are like, oh, which side is probably right? Probably me, historically. Although Zach's positive picks were probably the same picks as me. Who's to
Yeah,
say?
that's I'm not a very big better. That's why right there, because I bet with my heart, not my head, and I end up losing money all the time
Yeah, that's the joy of these picks, though, is that it's just
for fun.
us being
Exactly.
nonsensical. Absolutely. All right. So that's it, everybody, for you tuning in, watching, or listening. Um, Thank you for returning this year. If you are returning and you've
Thank you.
listened to us previously, whether it was last season or previously as XFL Weekly, we'd also like to thank you for tuning in if you are new. Absolutely, thank you for tuning in if you are
Hmm.
new. If you are watching us and you see me and our beautiful faces, thank you. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you are listening to us and want to see our beautiful faces, this is uploaded as a video to YouTube. Find us there at UFL Weekly. You'll probably find our faces in the thumbnail to some extent. I don't know why you wouldn't know what that looks like if you're listening to us, so I don't know why, but just guess what our faces look like, and you'll find that on searching UFL Weekly. So, yes, follow, like, and subscribe. Do all that fun stuff. You can find us on YouTube at UFL Weekly, podcast form UFL Weekly, and find us on X at UFL_weekly. I really spend a lot of time on there, kind of reblogging, reposting, retweeting any relevant news as it relates to the UFL. Um, Rosters, changes, firings, hiring, signings, all the fun stuff. Trades, we'll see plenty of that, hopefully.
Hmm.
Fingers crossed.
Hmm. Hopefully.
Um, but either way, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next week for a week 2 preview. And Zach, it was an absolute pleasure chatting with you again.
It always is, brother.
So, again, thank you. I appreciate you all and have a lovely weekend. Enjoy it. Spring football is back.
See ya.